Ever wonder how to make that perfect granola? You know, the kind with big chunks that actually stick together? Well, don't worry, I've got you covered. I tested so many recipes and finally came up with this one. It is my absolute favorite homemade granola recipe. It is so easy, and even better, it uses pantry ingredients I'm sure you have on hand already. So let me show you how easy this is to make. Here are all the ingredients you need to make my homemade granola. Yes, it's really this short of a list and this simple. Of course, you need oats, but you are going to need old-fashioned oats as well as quick oats. Both are necessary to make this granola with Clumps. Now, I will leave a link to these jars because I absolutely love them, and they store a whole 42-ounce container of oats, so it just makes it really easy to use them. In addition to the oats, you're going to need brown sugar, butter. We're going to use a little bit of water as well, cinnamon, nutmeg is in that second jar, and vanilla. If you want to add in mix-ins, we can definitely do that too, but today I'm just going to show you how to make the basic granola. Now let me show you how quickly we can mix this up. We're going to take 3/4 cup of butter and we're going to melt it, and to it we're going to add 2 tablespoons of water. I do have the printable recipe of this and it is all linked below in the comments. We're also going to go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Yes, I love using this pure Mexican vanilla. Again, links below. And we're going to go ahead and add our spices here. We have 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon that we're going to stir in right here. It's just a very basic granola recipe with the flavors, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. You can leave out the nutmeg if you want, but I like the flavor it adds. And then we're going to add 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. And we're going to go ahead and stir that all up together. That is the basis for our oatmeal. Just those couple ingredients. Quickly stir them together in your bowl like this, and then we're going to add in our oats. Now the oats, like I mentioned, part of what makes this recipe work is that we use a mixture of quick oats right here as well as old-fashioned. We're going to stir in 2 cups of both of those and mix them completely into our brown sugar mixture. So we're just going to dump those both in and give them a good stir, and then I'll show you the other trick for how to make those perfect clumps. Once you have it all mixed up, it will look exactly like this, just coated oats. Now this would be the point you can add in your mix-ins. If you want to add nuts, I like adding in mini chocolate chips. You could add craisins, raisins, whatever you want, but a lot of times I just leave it plain as a good basic granola. So we're going to take this and we're going to go over to a 9x13 pan, and we are going to line it with parchment paper. This is the trick. We're going to put a piece of parchment paper over our pan. It's very simple, so we'll just take our 9x13 and I'll show you how easy this is. Put the parchment paper on. It's not going to go in perfectly here, and we're gonna go ahead, and I'll see how well I can do this today one-handed. We're just gonna dump this on right like this so it goes on our parchment paper, and then we're going to pat it down as compactly and firmly as we can with a spatula. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to pat it down, like I said, finish patting it down as firmly as we can. Go to all the edges right here, press it down nice and firm. And now we are not going to stir this oatmeal. To make granola with clumps, the trick is you do not want to stir it in the middle. We're going to bake this nice and low and slow at 250 degrees for an hour. So just go ahead, like I said, dump it in, pat it as tightly and firmly as you can, and we're going to go ahead and bake it at 250 for 1 hour. After an hour, we're going to go ahead and take it out of the oven. You're going to see it's a nice crisp brown. It hasn't darkened a whole lot, but we're just going to leave it here in the pan just like this and let it cool completely. If you want good chunks, trust me, just let it sit here and cool. Once it's completely cool, and yes, you do want to let it cool all the way, we're going to lift it out of our pan, and you can see it all stuck together. Here's the part where we're going to make our chunks. We are just going to take this up, and you are going to have beautiful granola that you can break into as big or little of chunks as you want. It's very easy, but the trick is don't pat it, and you let it cool completely before you break it up like this. And you're gonna get some beautiful chunks here. And then I like to put mine in a big jar right here, just like this. I will leave some pretty big, And you can make them smaller, and we just fill it in. This is another one of those canning jars like I used earlier, but we're gonna take these and put it all in. And that's as simple as it is. You're gonna get some naturally smaller pieces, but you will get those nice big chunks, which is what everyone loves with granola. All right, I'm gonna finish putting this in my jar, and I'll give you a couple more tips and tricks. And that's how easy it is to make your own homemade granola with perfect clumps every single time. This really works using that one simple trick. Now here's a couple questions you're probably going to ask me. Can you use honey or maple syrup as your sweetener? Probably, but when I developed this recipe, all the granola recipes seemed to call for other sweeteners, and I wanted something I always had on my pantry shelf, so that's why I use brown sugar. You probably can. I do not know the exact ratios. If you want to experiment about it and let me know in the comments, I'd love to know that as well. But for now, I just use the brown sugar. I have used less butter before and substituted more water in a 1-to-1 ratio per tablespoon. And while it works, I will say that the clumps aren't quite as big or as tight and firm when I use less butter. The 3/4 cup butter seems to be about the ideal ratio. You can add in any mix-ins you like. If you like coconut or nuts or craisins or raisins or mini chocolate chips, whatever you like, go ahead and add it in. Pat it down, don't stir, and let it cool completely before you break it up. And it will work just perfectly that way. How long does it last? If you seal it tightly in a jar like this, and this is the quart-sized jar of the Anchor Hawking jars. I will leave an Amazon link to where I find these and this size, as well as the gallon ones I use for my oats, but I have found them at Walmart too. But if you seal it tightly like this, we can have it last several weeks at a time without a problem. However, it doesn't usually last that long because my kids love to eat this with our own homemade granola, our homemade granola with our own homemade yogurt. And yes, I said homemade yogurt because I do make our own yogurt in my crock pot. It is also incredibly easy and tastes so good, very healthy, simple, hands off, and it goes great with the granola. So if you want to check out that video next, I'll leave a link to that as well. Thanks so much for joining me, and I really do hope you love this granola as much as we do. If you have any questions, be sure to ask in the comments, and the printable recipe is below. Thanks so much for joining me, and now go see how I make the yogurt. You're gonna love it, especially if you love this granola.